Do you want to tell us first? Let's start here in America. You said that what's happening here with critical race theory, and I think it's important to mention it's well beyond critical race theory, but these changes we're seeing from the left. This is a culture revolution in America.
Well, as somebody who survived Mao's Cultural Revolution, it's very terrifying to see lots of similarities. The similarities that people who don't know about Mao's Cultural Revolution, he used Karl Marx theory, Communist Manifesto author, to separate people into primarily two big groups. We all heard those names, oppressor versus oppressed. And who are under oppressors group in Mao's China? Rich farmers, landlord, rightists, bad influencers, and counter-revolutionaries. Sounds familiar?
Bad influencers.
Yeah, who are those people?
And rightists.
Yes.
That's like basically anybody. They could just be like, you're a bad influencer.
Anybody who is not in line with Mao's party, which is one party ruling China today, CCP, China's Communist Party, and anybody who disagrees with the party policies or trying to offer some suggestions to say we can improve China better, maybe by doing better economically, you all can be classified as the so-called black classes, 5 classes. They're under oppressed. I was one of supposed to be oppressed, called workers, peasants, Communist Party members, officials, People's Liberation Armies. Because communism is all about proletarians rule, workers unite, right? Have you heard that before, Marxist terms? Mm-hmm. Oh, you could call that equity today. Do people even know that's a communist term? Equity, equal outcomes by forcefully doing wealth redistribution. That's what Mao did. He promised we're going to have, land taken from the rich, give to the peasants. We're going to take over all the private properties like factories, industries, so we can give to the people equally. People always buy into that kind of promise that never came, never came.
And how many people did he kill to enact that vision?
Under Mao, 20 to 40 million people starving to death during the Great Leap Forward campaign he did from 1958 to 1961. Then, during his 10 years Cultural Revolution from 1966 to 1976, 20 million people died. Wow. Add those numbers together. Our kids have no idea when I tell them, do you know more people died under Mao's Communist China than Hitler? No, did not know that. Too bad we don't emphasize the horror of communism, especially under Mao.
I went to Venezuela once, and I went to a protest. The people who were protesting were described as wealthier, more upper middle class, more successful business owners. And I noticed something interesting, that in a lot of places, you mentioned that people always buy this lie that we're going to take from the rich and give to the poor. Well, it's simple. They're saying we're going to give you stuff. And right. So for these people who are living, it doesn't matter what class you are. Being told you're going to get free stuff, people are like, I'll take stuff. So what ends up happening is I see this with, Occupy Wall Street. I see with other protests in other countries. In many ways, you'll see the poor people will protest when conditions are bad for the poor. And then when you get this inversion, like in Venezuela, where they take away the property from the middle class, it was actually middle class and upper class people protesting because they couldn't survive, they couldn't succeed, and they're the ones producing in the country. So it was interesting. It seems like the rightists or whatever they're of course going to oppose this effort to strip away the wealth and the resources they build and give it to other people. I don't see how it's noble or honorable to take from somebody who has made a bunch of things by force, within reason, mind you, to just give it away to everybody else arbitrarily, especially when there's no agreement, there's no social contract. And that's one of the biggest problems we have today, which is why so many libertarians say taxation is theft. I think there is a line, but I do find it to be particularly interesting. Long story short, it doesn't matter if it's communist China, it doesn't matter if it's Cuba, Venezuela, or even the United States. Now in the United States, they're saying the oppressors and the oppressed, and they're using race to get what they want. So now you have this idea, I guess, they're claiming, who are they claiming are the oppressors now? Typically white, cis, heteronormative men.
Right, you have your own new called
Right.
oppressors groups, oppressed groups. But see, to me though, it's not even about race or skin color. It's really about the Cultural Revolution, like Mao did, right? Because Mao will use critical class theory to destroy thousands of years of Chinese civilization, culture, and religion, arts. 1/3 of cultural relics were destroyed.
Yeah.
Taiwan, Hong Kong people preserve more of traditional Chinese culture. Even beautiful, like Chinese dresses were banned to wear during Mao time. I cannot lay my hair down like this. It's old style. I cannot wear beautiful, sexy women's dresses because that was capitalist. So everything has to be in line, conform to collective society.
Well, here's what I think happened. In China, it was mostly ethnically Chinese. So
Yeah, same people.
critical class theory is what you'd have to use
Right.
in order to create your oppressed and oppressor. The critical race theorist, notably Kimberly Crenshaw, wrote that, in her book Critical Race Theory, that they called it critical race theory so that people would understand that it came from critical theory, from Marxist ideology. And the idea conveyed in the book is that Marx didn't understand the racial dynamics that happened in the United States about who is the oppressor and who is the oppressed. And he seems to think, his ideas of class only work in these old world, ethnically homogenous places. So they needed to create a new framework that was race-based for the U.S. And this was back, I think it was like the late 70s, early 80s. And now it's come straight to the forefront, some 30, 40 years later. Now it's in our schools. They're lying, saying it's not in our schools. But what they've done is they keep changing the goal. They keep moving the goalposts. Oh, it's not critical race theory. It's something else. Oh, it's not feminism. It's something else. Oh, we're just teaching people not to be bigots. And then every step of the way, they're indoctrinating into this Marxist ideology. So we get caught up in things like critical race theory. I hear it all the time from parents saying critical race theory in our schools. And I said, have you talked about critical theory in general or critical gender theory? And they don't. So that's one of the things that keeps people kind of running in circles is the constant semantic debate. But it is in our schools now. It's critical race applied principle. Children are being taught all of these ideas in their curriculums, not just as a whole. So the teachers aren't saying open up your critical race theory books. The teachers are saying open up your science book and learn about the critical theory of the frog or something. They're injecting the ideology. It's called praxis. They're putting it into the literature. Now these kids are going to grow up and they're going to believe this stuff. They're going to be a part of that. So we may be 10 years away from our idealistic college kids. We already have them, obviously. But imagine now all these grade school kids who are being indoctrinated. Imagine when they're in school. And then there's some charismatic, cultural, Marxist leader who comes around. He's a little bit older and he rallies all of these kids now who are in their 20s. That could come here and we will face a cultural revolution in, a decade?
Well, that's one of the similarities I see is to indoctrinate our youth, make them religiously following so-called social justice movement, right? And follow all this critical race theory, whatever new name they might give it. So basically, it is about equity. They just use race card, use gender issues, and you have to use identity politics to separate your citizens. It's a typical Maoist, Marxist way to do divide and conquer. How do you divide people? Mao did by classes, right? 5 red, 5 black. And what are the Marxists doing in our country? By race. If you trace back those critical race theory, so people cannot sell communism very old-fashioned way by doing, who is poor, who is rich. But they can sell to the culturally people sensitive, compassionate, buying the race game, race car, and look, all those people who have different sexes, different genders, different races, skin color, they are oppressed. But they don't know. Oppressor versus oppressed, that's already typical Marxist, theory, Maoist theory. Then further divide people into subgroups. You have to get people to fight each other, hate each other. Mao said, revolution is not dinner party. It's not embroidery. Revolution is about crush your enemies with a hammer. That's what the Communist Party symbol is, right? Mm-hmm. Use violence. Scare people. Were you scared last year when you say what's going on in our streets? Mao also used young people to top down the statues, destroy the cultural relics, and looting door to door by red guards. Drum hitting, go to searching the doors, get rid of the people have to burn books, hide their old dresses, and hide old Chinese arts, or give them away, bury them so they don't go to concentration camps.
People don't get this.
They don't get this.
When the statues were being torn down, these are the stories we read about in these books. These were the movies we watched, where you see the image of the people throwing the ropes and toppling the statues. We knew that this was a component of what was going on, and then we watched it happen for a year, and so many people in this country didn't care. And I saw these conversations. People would say, well, you know, Christopher Columbus was a racist or whatever. And I'm like, the point is, whether you agree or disagree, violent groups tearing down statues without public conversations, without any democratic values, these are authoritarians who are imposing their will on everyone else. And no one asked for this. If you allow these people to keep doing whatever they want, and that's what's happened, eventually they just take absolute authority. And then what they will do is substantially worse than what they're doing now. We had a man on the show. He was a freedom fighter after the revolution in Cuba. He said if these people get real power, they'll start killing people.
Well, they did. I mean, how many people died? The most sad part is they get the children turned on their parents, grandparents, and the neighbors. Friends. I learned my lesson. I couldn't trust my friends. My friend reported to teacher about I was bragging about my good grades in schools as 7 years old. Oh, she was full of herself. She was overly confident, bragging about her grades. She'll be first one to join Mao's Young Pioneer group, wear that red scarf. I was pushed back for a year not to join Mao's Young Pioneer to wear that red scarf. I was a red child. I was very competitive. I wanted to do it. I wanted to be first group to wear red scarf. I got a spy, a friend reported to teachers. I got a call into teacher principal office to say, sorry, you are full of yourself. In our collective society, your individual expression, confidence are not allowed. You better to act like one of the other students. Keep your head down. Conform. I learned my lesson at 7. I never forget that lesson. I never forget to remind myself, don't trust anybody in this society. And I become Red Guard later, and I become even Communist Youth member when I was in college. And after graduating from law school, I wanted to teach in Shanghai. I had to join Communist Party in order to teach a university, to teach law. Otherwise, where your loyalty? You know, so I did all that. But I also learned in my back burner, I better not trust anybody. I need to be strategic what I say. Is that sad? I feel like that way today about America. I have to be careful about what I said. Why am I getting canceled? History is repeating itself.
Thanks for checking out this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. If you want to see the full show, come back to this channel, youtube.com/TimcastIRL, Monday through Friday at 8 p.m., where you can leave comments and super chat, and we actually will read your comments on the show. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and if you want exclusive members-only content, segments you can't get anywhere else, go to timcast.com, become a member, and we even have full bonus episodes. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.